Fire in the hole. Welcome to Fro-Dog Arcade Repair. Today we're going to look at one of the universal chassis. This is an actual Wei-Ya, and bought this as new old stock, and it is supposed to be specifically a G07 replacement. We got the right number of pins on the neck board. That's a good start. All right. Rest of the chassis in the box, I don't think I can get it out with one hand, so we'll cut away. All right. We're back with the chassis out of the box. Let's take a look at what we got here. It does appear to not have been used. New old stock. Let's undo a couple of bread twisty ties here. Unfurl some pieces. Take my tag off. Model number appears to be an 820. Not quite sure how to decode that manufacturer date. Your vertical yoke resistance. Where's my handy pocket screwdriver I love as a pointer? 56 ohms. And 2 ohms for horizontal. That does make sense because that high 56 does go along with the G06. Little styrofoam fuzz there. I actually kind of like these universals. And the reason I say that is they're actually just pretty darn simple. They mirror a lot of the technology and circuit design of the old school monitors like the G07 or the K4600, stuff like that. No switch mode, has a simple diode rectified and regulated power supply. There are various makers. Like I said, this particular one does happen to be a Wei-Ya, and there are other makers that even clone the Wei-Ya. My understanding is China has very poor enforcement of any kind of copyright. But I think they're much maligned. I really do. For the price point, for the functionality. Oh yeah, but Fro-Dog, you can't just take it out of the box and plug it in and have it work. Yeah. All right, so you can't. I would say this one's going to be a little closer to that because it's specified as a G07 replacement, but nobody said it was consumer plug-and-play dummy-proof. End users, non-tech folk can watch the videos on YouTube and figure a lot out from that. I'll be honest, I've watched a fair amount of YouTube videos about them, and I see a handful of basic board designs. This particular one, we've got our picture adjustments along this front edge, our 3 main color drive pots over here, are red, green, and blue. Bright, vertical linearity, 2 brights. No, I'm not sure why it's stenciled bright there again. Vertical position, size holder. If you look along the edge here, we've got the English. But it doesn't have a remote board. Yeah, neither did the G07 or the K4600. I know it sounds like I'm, defending it an awful lot, but again, I think it has received so much bad press and malignment. Maybe it does need a little defending. They are inexpensively made. They sometimes don't have the best quality solder work, but as a technician, I'm going to just put it up on the bench and take a look at it like I would anything else. For sketchy solder joints, I'll reflow them. If something doesn't look right, I'll delve into it. I light it up, it don't work, we'll troubleshoot it. But again, you know, this isn't a $1,000 piece of equipment. It was never billed as such, and it certainly doesn't cost as much. In all honesty, in the open market, these used to be cheaper than they are now. Seems to me they're about $1.25 to $1.50 shipped, depending on where you get them. And that's just in a box, best of luck, never tested, never put on a tube and yoke assembly, no real guidance on what tube and yoke it might be set up for or dialed in on at all. But, you know, that potluck price, if you will. Used to be able to get these, call it 10, maybe even 15 years ago when you first started seeing them. I heard of guys getting these for 25, 26 bucks. Let's take a look at what we got. Now, let's look at our neck board first. Don't see anything egregious on the neck board. As with anything, I'll probably hit these header pins for that ribbon, but the solder on the controls looks reasonable. The CRT socket looks fine. Nothing's bent over, grossly messed up. Nothing looks broken. Pots are even reasonably straight. Some of these, the pots can get kind of bent up in shipping. One nomenclature you'll see a lot on the Chinese stuff is E. Can you see that? Trying to get that in frame. There we go, a little bit. The E is ground. Earth ground is what they're trying to state there. Here's our input pin for signal. They don't look cracked, but I am going to flow them just because. I'd just about flow input pins on anything that came across the bench. None of the controls, solder joints look cracked or busted in any way. But as with most pots on anything wave flow soldered, they look a little thin. Alright, well, we're sitting here. I'll go ahead and touch up a little bit of solder on the bottom here. If I can get a little smarter than the spool, I'll be able to get some solder out. See what I can do to prop that end of the board up a little bit better. Believe it or not, gravity does make a difference on some of your reflow. Anything with a little bit bigger pin, the flatter and more even the board is, better the solder will flow. Won't all bunch down on one end on you. I mean, really got to think about it like water or anything else. When that solder's hot, it's literally liquid, going to flow to the lowest point. You'll have some surface tension pulling on it from like the component leg, keep it from just rolling across the board. So what I've got is I've got a genuine G07 tube that I had just pulled the chassis off of. It was kind of dirty, a little scungy with just time, age, dust collection. I mean, for goodness sake, it's from 1982. But I washed the chassis and prepped for repair and refurbishment on that. That'll be another episode. but I do have the tube and yoke cleaned up, sitting over on the bench. It'll probably end up becoming my general G07 test tube. It's got a lot of bad screen burn. I'm sure we can get a viable enough picture to test with, but it's not going to be a beauty queen to resell by any stretch. All right. Let's see, where does our header come down for the neck board? Any of those look like they need a little love? We can while we're here. Over here on our PTC thermistor, this particular universal is provisioned with a degauss circuit, and our PTC thermistor looked like it could use a little thicker joint on it. And in typical soldering snob fashion, I'm gonna say that the regulator and the HOT have too much solder on them. I'm going to wick a little off and clean that up to my standard, just like I would flow and anything else. We'll also check those with a meter, just hit the high points. On any kind of unknown equipment, never a bad idea to just HOT, regulator, or switching transistor. Look for sand block resistors. Oftentimes without a print on a strange piece of equipment, especially if you have any kind of power problems. It's never a bad idea to go to all of your oxide resistors and just look for that they're not open. Right? They are used as a fusible device so often. They don't put them there just because they look cool. There we go, not quite subulbous and globus. I'm going to go ahead and touch the pins on the flyback. I always think those look like they could use a little extra solder on a lot of things that just haven't been touched before. And I think it's a common technician thing, because I rarely come across a chassis that anybody else has touched that they haven't reflowed the pins on the flyback. It's like we're drawn to it, like a moth to a flame, a magnet. Okay, and I said I'd get this on the neck board and just hit that header. Get enough solder that got a little bit of lead there. Give myself enough rope I can hang myself with it. Okay, that all looks good. Take a meter and take a couple of quick tests. Let's look at continuity. The fuses should be good, but we'll take a look at them. They are glass fuses. They could get beat around in shipping and years of storage. Okay, let's go to diode. Let's take a look at our HOT. Got our junctions. The same heat sink houses our regulator. Okay, our sand block resistor here, 20 watt, 220 ohm. So let's go back to resistance. You guys probably like to see the meter. Why don't I bring that into frame? 214, that looks good. We got over here a 2 ohm at 5 watt. Two ohm, 2.3. All right. Another cap that's kind of pushed over a little bit there. We'll straighten that little feller up. I think everything looks good. This, as is common with the universals, does require an isolation transformer, just like a G07 would. It has, again, like I'd mentioned, a diode rectified and regulated power supply. So, looking at our board here, they are kind enough to give us two yoke positions, A and B, and it tells us where our vertical and horizontal are. One will be normal, one will be reverse. Without a documentation or a book, we got a 50-50 shot. That's not rocket science to figure out when you plug it in if you're mirrored or reversed. Pots are pretty much in the center here. Let's see, what about our ones out on the edge? I do wonder if they light these up at the factory at all, or if they just assemble them and go for it. Well, drop that one. Let's get this one. So I'm going to center all these pots. When in doubt, center is not a bad starting point. We can always come back to them. We're going to have to anyhow, kind of tweak them and adjust them around. This one is our horizontal width by adjusting the core in the coil. Comes with the handy dandy little knob tool. Our B plus adjustment we are going to leave alone. Let's take an assumptive leap that they adjusted the B plus at the factory. We do have a jumper set here for narrow wide. We'll see how that plays out on which way it needs to go. And we got our D-Gauss hookup over here. Not the thickest power cord I've ever seen, but not as thin as some. Some people complain out of the gate that those should be replaced. What I'm going to do is I'll end up removing it completely and just putting a pigtail on with a Molex that would be like the G07 would have naturally. Then we should be able to plug in just about anywhere G07 goes. What is our value on our caps over here? Our 3-color caps are 100 mics at 16 volts. We're running an HA11235 sync processor. And how are we doing the vertical? We do not have an integrated vertical IC, so we're doing it here with the transistors. That's probably also why there's not another pot over here in this area for the vertical, because we don't have like an LA series chip. Oh, I know one other thing I wanted to check. Let's put our capacitance meter on the B+ filter cap. Oh. Let's see, can I get this over into frame where you can enjoy it too? We're reading 474 mic at a 0.14 ESR. That sounds good. What's it spec'd at? It is labeled as 470 mic, so I'd say we're good there. I am going to do a little bit of board scrub-a-dub-dub since I soldered on it and I don't like all that flux and whatnot. I want to clean it just like I would anything else. There's a little bit of factory flux left. We'll get that off there too, which I think there was on those 3 color transistors. Get a little bit of rinse. And blot it dry. Don't scrub it, blot it. But I'm going to scrub a little bit too. Alright, that looks good. Let's get our main board over here. Since we did most of our soldering down here at the bottom on those pots, we'll put that at the bottom. It also works well for weight distribution. And we need to get a little bit over here on our heavy transistors. Give the whole board a little splash. Some factory flux around the B+ cap. We soldered around the PTC thermistor there and that header. A little more denatured alcohol. Again, I use denatured. I find isopropyl just doesn't have quite the cutting power that denatured does. Denatured, you can find it in the paint section of your local Home Depot, Lowe's, and Menards. And funny, I say them in that order, but they're kind of in the other order as to which way I like them best. I tend to gravitate towards Menards. If I'm buying lumber, it's Lowe's. Depot's got decent lumber too, but Menards, yeah, maybe not so much on their actual board feet of goods. I think some of their lumber's a little lesser, but I like the shopping experience at Menards. Great place to get a car battery. Didn't think you'd come to the arcade monitor repair video and be getting automotive battery advice, did you? But you did. I am a solutions provider. I'm here to help. Very, very clean. Okay, let's put it back in its plastic chassis holder. which I'm going to turn the chassis itself around. All of our controls and our control labels are this side of the plastic base. Let's get rid of some more of that styrofoam fuzz. That stuff just wants to hang on. Hang on, styrofoam fuzz, hang on. That don't quite rhyme with hang on, Sloopy, does it? Doesn't quite flow. Now, here's another little technician trick I'll talk about. And my brother taught me this a long time ago. A lot of guys will just take a screw, jam it in the hole, and start cranking. Just grind their own new threads right through. If you back up just a little bit until you feel that click, then you're in the original threads and you're not forcing and fighting that screw back in, cutting a new set of threads. Works on about anything, whether it's plastic or metal. If you just start by coming backwards a little bit, you feel it drop in, and then it just glides on home for following the original threads. Oh, that was, well, I just say that was kind of dumb of me. I was going to change that out, but for our test purposes, I'll leave it alone and just plug it into our isolation transformer line that way. Aha, there is one more screw. It's hiding under an alcohol bottle. And it goes here with the power cord strain relief. There we go. Sometimes you get lucky and just where you drop the screw, you're golden and it's ready to roll. All right. Let's straighten this wire out just a little bit so we can get it up to our tube. The only other thing I see, I think I'm going to put a zip tie right here. Kind of hold that G2 wire up out of the way. Let's put it on the other side of that. No, that has to go all the way around Robin Hood's barn that way, doesn't it? That's where our flyback tie-off is. And again, this isn't stuff you have to do. This is just me. Okay. Pair of side cutters to nip it off. And I think we're ready to go over to a tube. I don't want to forget to find my trusty pocket screwdriver on the floor here. So we'll cut away and I'll see you at the tube. We've got our yoke connection that we're not going to use. We'll tuck it up out of the way. Got our new yoke connection, our new dag ground. Our degauss wires are going to fit the chassis as it is, so we'll just plug those on. We'll try our first yoke connection there. And again, right side up, wrong side up, backwards. We'll find out what we end up with. There we go, that's on the board. Let's get our neck board on the tube. Fits tighter than OJ's glove. If the neck board does not fit, you must have quit. right, we have our power coming over here to our fire in the hole switch, which is on our isolation transformer. We've got our high voltage anode hooked up. We've got our ground, our DAG ground to our neck board. We've got our yoke hooked up. We've got our degauss hooked up. Screen and focus. Let's start by turning the screen all the way down. I did cheat in that I have one of these cables made up, fits the test pattern generator. I'm trying to remember. This is probably going to want composite sync. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll try positive, negative, vertical, horizontal sync and see what it actually needs when we get there. All right, so we've got signal headed that direction. We've got the rest of our connections made. We're sitting insulated. No time like the present. Fire in the hole. Ooh, I heard it come up. We don't have a picture, but we have a tired tube, which will take a little bit to heat up, and I cranked our screen all the way down. Let's bring our screen up. Oh yeah, we got something going on. It's rolling because we don't have any sync. Let's try vertical positive sync. No. Horizontal positive. Horizontal negative. That looks about as close as we're going to get. All right. Sometimes old school's just a little better in figuring something out. I'll fool with what I need to do on the Crafty Mech, but for now I've got it hooked up to my BK old school generator, and we've got some stable color bars. I apologize, but I lost some video footage, so I'm going to have to do this wrap up just as an audio file. In conclusion, this particular Wei-Ya G07 replacement chassis is a reasonable option, but it's not perfect. It would be a good economy solution to get a machine back up and running quickly for an operator or a budget restoration. My biggest issue with this particular model is no pincushion adjustment. The colors and picture came up vibrant, but the pincushion geometry might be noticeable with some solid playfield or maze-based games such as Pac-Man series. I think the lack of pincushion adjustability puts this chassis best suited for space and space scrolling games that don't have defined edges. Examples would be Galaga, Galaxian, and there are plenty of others. I'd consider this a middle featured unit as it does have the degauss circuit integrated, but does lack that pincushion adjustment. Wei-Ya and other Chinese makers have offered more feature-rich versions that include the pincushion, but the pincushion can typically be adjusted on units that utilize an LA series IC for vertical signal processing. This is identified with a single heat sink with that one IC. It's a single inline package IC on it, where the non-pincushion units typically just have two smaller heat sinks with TO220 style transistors driving the vertical circuit. Now, the entry-level most chassis feature neither degauss nor pincushion, so there is a lower model below these. Overall, I think the universal chassis and the replacement series units such as this that replaces the G07 specifically, they have their place. They provide options for operators enthusiasts alike. Though they're often not very consumer-friendly or plug-and-play, but as a tech, I find them simple to fix, and I'm not daunted by the prospect of tweaking them in for best picture. As far as selling these units, Once you've tweaked one in on a basic tube and yoke setup, like I did with this one for a G07, it should drop right into about any G07 and be reasonable with then some minor tweaks for best color and focus and whatnot on your specific equipment and in your environment. Thank you for joining me at Fro-Dog Arcade Repair. I hope you enjoyed the video, found it useful, or at least entertaining. Please subscribe below, like, follow, and share with your friends. And remember, fire in the hole.